Imagine this. You're having the worst day of your life. Sitting on the sidewalk in the rain, your dreams shattered. But suddenly, a car stops, the window rolls down, and there he is, Donald Trump. This was no ordinary night. This was the night a life completely changed. What happened, you ask? Let's tell you now. Make sure to subscribe right now to follow us and never miss more interesting, surprising, and inspiring stories. After a busy meeting, Trump finally stepped out of the building and took a deep breath as the cool breeze of the rain hit him. The gray clouds covering the city contrasted with the brightly lit signs. As the rhythmic sound of the rain hit the pavement, the droplets reflected the lights on the asphalt. His driver opened the door of the black luxury car, and as Trump got in, he quickly closed the door, and the car started moving. Looking out the window, he observed the familiar streets of New York. The longing for this city, where he had spent so many years, stirred a strange feeling inside him. Every street corner, every skyscraper reminded him of different moments from the past. As he was lost in these thoughts, his eyes caught something. At first, he didn't understand, but within a few seconds, he focused all his attention on that spot. A feeling came over him, and he was sure he had seen something unexpected. He ordered his driver sharply. "Stop the car." Trump carefully observed the young woman. Rain had soaked every corner of her simple yet elegant pink ball gown, and the hem was moving back and forth in the water flowing along the sidewalk. Her shoulders were slightly trembling, and her face was wet with tears. She sat there alone, as if the rest of the world had completely forgotten her, looking sad and helpless. Trump paused for a moment, then quickly rolled down the window and called out in a gentle yet confident voice, "Is there anything I can do to help?" The young woman slowly lifted her head. Her eyes widened in shock and disbelief. One of the most famous figures in America was standing in front of her. She couldn't speak for a few seconds. The words seemed to be stuck in her throat. I, sir," she stammered. Trump smiled lightly, nodding with a sincere but confident demeanor. "Everyone goes through tough times," he said. "I don't want you to be out here getting soaked. Would you let me buy you a coffee?" The woman was still in shock. Her eyes were wide with astonishment as she looked at Trump. In that moment, it felt like the world had stopped. She tried to understand what was happening, but she still couldn't find the words. Finally, she silently nodded. Trump's driver immediately got out of the car and, with a quick yet respectful movement, opened the door for the young woman. She stood up still in a daze and walked slowly toward the car. As Trump bent slightly to get into the car, he asked, "What's your name?" The young woman, her voice still trembling but a little more composed, answered, I'm Emma." Trump gave a slight nod to his bodyguards and driver, signaling them to leave. He didn't want to draw attention, and he was also concerned about making Emma feel uneasy. He wanted to ease, even if just a little, the bad moments she had experienced today. As the rain made the pavement shine like a mirror, Trump noticed that the young woman was still shivering, confused, and soaked. With an instinctive gesture, he took off his jacket and held it out to her. "Take this, don't catch a cold," he said in a soft voice. Emma hesitated at first, but when she saw the determined look in Trump's eyes, she gently accepted the jacket and draped it over her shoulders. She was still in shock, unable to believe what was happening. While she had expected everything to go wrong today, she now found herself with one of America's most famous men, living one of the strangest moments of her life. Trump took Emma to a cafe he loved, a little farther from the city's hustle, but still with the lively atmosphere. This cafe, known for its classic style that hadn't changed for years, had always been a peaceful retreat for Trump. The windows were fogged up, and the warm air inside had swallowed the coolness of the rain. When they entered, the scent of coffee filled the air. Some customers noticed Trump and turned their surprised gazes toward them. Whispers started, but Trump ignored them and made his way to a quiet table in the corner, sitting across from Emma. When the waiter came over, Trump confidently placed his order. "2 coffees, please, one with milk." Emma was still trying to understand the situation. This couldn't be real, or at least it didn't make sense. Donald Trump was sitting in front of her, buying her coffee. Lost in her thoughts, Trump's voice brought her back to reality. "What's going on?" he asked, his voice filled with both curiosity and genuine interest. Emma smiled and shook her head. She blinked in surprise, then let out a light laugh. "I think this is a dream." Trump chuckled softly, but his gaze never left the young woman. His eyes were carefully studying her. Emma took a deep breath and continued. Today, I graduated from university, she said, her voice a bit steadier now, but there was still a deep sense of hurt beneath it. But my family couldn't come to the ceremony. They had other things to do. She lowered her eyes to the empty table in front of her, paused for a moment, then continued. And I had planned to go to the prom with my boyfriend. We had dreamed about it together. It was supposed to be special. But her throat tightened, and for a moment, she thought she wouldn't be able to speak. But after taking a deep breath, she carried on. He cheated on me with my best friend and left me today. Trump could see the hurt and disappointment in the young woman's eyes. Emma continued, as if pouring out the last pieces of her pain. I didn't know what to do. I made my dress myself. I've been working on it for a month. Every stitch was done by hand because today was important to me. I've dreamed about this day since I started university, but everything fell apart. Trump let Emma express the pain she had been holding inside, listening carefully. Her voice trembled, but there was strength in it too. Trump paused for a moment, then looked into Emma's eyes and smiled softly. You know, he said, his voice gentle but firm. Sometimes, the greatest disappointments in life open the door to the most beautiful beginnings. Emma looked up at him. The tears in her eyes hadn't dried, but for the first time, it seemed like a glimmer of hope had sparked. The sound of the coffee machine echoing in the cafe, the soft music in the background, and the rain tapping on the window made the atmosphere feel warmer and more peaceful, even if just for a moment. Trump gently squeezed Emma's hands on the table. Maybe today started badly, but how it ends is entirely in your hands. You can change this. Emma took a deep breath and sipped her coffee. Maybe this night didn't have to be as bad as she thought it would be. Emma frowned slightly when she saw Trump take out his phone and, politely excusing himself, walk away from the table. Was another strange chapter being added to this already bizarre night? Still struggling to fully comprehend what had just happened, Trump returned to the table a few minutes later. His eyes were filled with excitement and confidence as he looked at Emma. We're leaving, he said, a mysterious smile on his face. I have a surprise for you. Emma's eyes widened. She shook her head slightly, trying to protest. Sir, you don't have to do anything for me. I mean, just talking to me has been so kind. And I? Trump gave her a sharp yet friendly look, slightly tilting his head. Come on, Emma, he said firmly. There was an irresistible determination in his voice. Emma took a deep breath and stood up. Although she didn't know what would happen next, her curiosity outweighed any hesitation. As they reached the door, Trump's driver was already waiting. Emma paused for a moment before getting into the car, but then stepped inside. The city lights flashed past them as the car moved, while Trump stared out the window without saying a word. Emma, still wondering what Trump had in mind, also felt a strange excitement building inside her. About 20 minutes later, the car slowed down and stopped in front of one of New York's most luxurious hotels. Emma's mouth dropped open for a moment. The giant golden entrance doors, the dazzling chandeliers inside, and the elegantly dressed staff at the entrance. The driver quickly got out and opened the door for her. Emma stepped out cautiously and followed Trump inside. Her heart was filled with an odd feeling, both astonishment and awe. As they entered the hotel, Trump led her straight to the elevator. When the doors closed, Emma still couldn't fully comprehend what was happening. Finally, the elevator stopped, and when the doors opened, Emma was faced with a breathtaking view. The hotel's top-floor penthouse. But what really shocked her was the sight of dozens of staff members waiting inside. In the middle of the room, a collection of elegant ball gowns was displayed, set up like a lavish boutique. The fabric sparkled, the stone-embellished cuts were exquisite, and there were dozens of options in various colors. And every staff member's eyes were now fixed solely on her. Emma was literally frozen in place. Is this? She whispered. Trump stepped forward and, with a determined voice, said, Madam, you need to be ready for the ball in an hour. At that moment, everyone in the room sprang into action. Stylists, makeup artists, and hairdressers immediately got to work. Emma, still trying to process everything, didn't have time to grasp what was going on. A woman gently took her arm and led her to the bathroom. Come on, sweetie, let's get you out of those clothes and let you relax for a bit, she said in a warm voice. Emma felt like she was inside a dream. As the warm water enveloped her body, The exhaustion and disappointment from earlier seemed to lift, even if just a little. The hairdresser gently washed and styled her hair, while makeup artists worked on her face. Stylists debated which gown would suit her best, holding up different fabrics and measuring her by eye. Everything was moving quickly. Emma still couldn't keep up with what was happening, but a strange sense of peace filled her. Her day had started terribly, but now it was turning into something out of a fairy tale. And Trump, throughout the preparations, he had quietly stepped out of the room to give Emma space to relax. The media buzzed about the event for days. Trump attending the graduation ball with a young, unknown woman, dancing with her all night, and then giving his impressive speech dominated the headlines. News channels, newspapers, social media platforms, everyone was discussing the details of this unexpected event. Who is Trump's mysterious dance partner? A fairy tale at the graduation ball, Trump and Emma's unforgettable night. Trump's touch, how a young woman's life changed overnight. At first, the attention was overwhelming for Emma. She had suddenly become the center of social media, with everyone talking about her. People were eager to learn how the young woman, who had been crying on the sidewalk, had transformed into a dazzling ball queen overnight. But that wasn't all. Despite just graduating, Emma had also caught the eye of the career world. Leading companies, brands, and media organizations began pouring in job offers for her. PR firms, luxury fashion houses, even news channels wanted to collaborate with her. Key figures in the business world were eager to involve this young woman, whose determination and courage stood out, in their projects. Emma, who had once been filled with worries about her future, was now on the cusp of seizing the greatest opportunities of her life. And perhaps most importantly, thanks to everything she experienced that night, she now knew that nothing in life was impossible. If this story has inspired you and you want to see more extraordinary, emotional, and uplifting tales, don't forget to subscribe right now. Every day, we share the most interesting and touching stories with you. To make sure you don't miss any, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and share your thoughts about this story in the comments below. See you in the next story.